entire farm here is organic, right? Can you talk a little bit about the difficulties of that and the challenges of that?
Yeah, sure. We really wanted the farm to be a pure organic lavender farm, and so that was to protect obviously the honeybees that we raise here, but also, you know, to make the purest of pure essential oils. But growing obviously an organic plant, also a Mediterranean plant in a harsh Canadian climate, has its unique challenges. We lose a lot of our plants every year, not as much to the spraying or anything that's happening in the areas, but it's actually to the harsh winters that we get. These plants should last us 30 years, but we're probably getting 3 to 4 years before they're dying in the winter months. Okay?
So this is a sort of an unusual year for farmers. Everybody else is complaining about how dry it is, and you're quite a happy man, right?
Yeah, I say I'm the only farmer around that's doing cartwheels because of the sun. Lavender loves dry, hot summers. This is a Mediterranean plant, as I mentioned, and the Mediterranean plant is used to really hot, dry weather, sandy soils, and great drainage. They send their roots deep and far so that they can actually find what little water might be around. So if you have the opposite, a big rainy summer, these plants could actually rot, and they'll actually die because of too much moisture. So this summer it's been incredibly special, but you know, as saying earlier, coming out of winter, I'm not doing cartwheels because last winter we had a freeze thaw, and that was just literally killing and desiccating the plants at an incredible rate.
So Ian, it must be a bit of a challenge having a working farm, having people here with a delicate plant, and then also having people come through. How do you balance those two?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is a balance, and it's a challenge for sure. A lot of people come to a lavender farm and they're excited because of the beautiful purple rose, so they expect to see, I think, something more akin to a botanical garden. And yet we are a farm, and we're a working farm, an organic working farm, and our product, in this case our commodity, is the flower and the bud. So not unlike an apple farmer or a corn farmer, we're harvesting, we're working on this, we're weeding. We have to do all of that when the farm closes. A lot of the visiting public do ask us, why do you close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Why do you not open 7 days a week? And it's because we are farmers first, and we're trying to work these fields, and whenever we close the gates, our farm never closes. So we are pretty much exhausted as a small family trying to build this business, because we really don't get a free time during bloom season and during the summer. But we think the benefit of opening up the farm to the public and letting them see how we farm it, and by and large the majority really appreciate and love the experience, is great for the agricultural community in Ontario and in Canada in general. That people start to understand a sense of place of where the products come from that they eat, consume, or acquire every day from farmers across the country.
So do you have to deal a lot with insects and other kinds of pests here?
No, we're actually quite fortunate with respect to lavender. It really isn't affected by any sort of known pests around Ontario, and so from that perspective we've been lucky. We don't use any pesticides or herbicides, so that was also something we wanted to be sure we could do in an organic concept for lavender farming. But the other challenge that we had too was, as you can see on a lot of our lavender, we've got thousands, millions of honeybees, because we farm honeybees here as well. And unfortunately there we are losing a vast amount of our bees every year due to pesticides. Not ones that we're using on the farm, but ones that are on neighboring cornfields and soybean crops, the neonicotinoids, which fortunately in this province now the Premier has introduced a 50% ban this year in 2016 and an 80% ban in 2017. Hopefully they'll get to a 100% ban, but it is killing our bees at an incredible rate. And we've had scientists come in and test our bees, and they're loaded with these neonicotinoids that they're picking up. Our bees, once they've finished foraging on lavender, are picking up from the neighboring farms, and it's really quite devastating to our bee population.
So how many different kinds of lavender are you growing here?
We're growing 8 varieties. There's about 220 different cultivars or varieties of lavender. globally. We've chosen 8. These ones we've chosen in partnership with the Simcoe Research Lab, University of Guelph, that's done research to understand which varieties might do best in our Canadian climates. One of the core things that we did in attaching a principle to the farm was that we wanted to educate the public on farming, on organic farming, on lavender farming, both the joys you can see, the smell and all the honeybees, and also the challenges of growing lavender in Ontario. So anybody visiting the farm has the opportunity to take an educational guided tour and learn how to grow lavender, learn its properties, and learn about the honeybees and the environment and ecosystem in which we're in. In addition to that, we wanted to make a very peaceful and tranquil setting. So we've geared the farm towards adults. Children are clearly welcome, but there is no petting zoo or climbing gyms. This farm is about coming to relax. It's also about being able to take a photograph, and so we've installed on the farm some beautiful art sculptures or outdoor art installations that people can also photograph amongst the lavender. On Saturdays and Sunday mornings, we also open the farm up and do yoga in the fields. Again, in the theme of the relaxation and the idea of escaping. It's a great escape to actually have a lavender class, have a yoga class in the lavender field, and end it with a cloth on your eyes of lavender oil and a small cup of lavender tea at the end of the class. We do that, and then at other times we might do a cooking demonstration. So we've had gold medal chefs here that'll teach people how to cook with lavender. We've been trying to support the local arts community, so we have chosen artists that we're now selling their art, and all themed around lavender here at the farm. We have an equestrian stable here, and so at times we're doing equestrian demonstrations. It's not a riding farm, but the idea that people can learn the uses of horses and how they work on a farm.
So Ian, this looks like a whiskey still. What is it really?
Some days I wish it was a whiskey still, but this is actually a split top column still that we had handmade for us in Portugal. And it's been hand hammered out of sheets of copper and bent and beautifully put together. This is the way that premium 100% essential oil was done and is done for hundreds of years in Europe. And we wanted to take that artisanal approach to how we made the oil. It does mean that it takes a lot longer to make a lot of oil here in the farm, but you get a much better oil, a really true essence of the lavender. And then because, as you can see, it looks a little messy here, but that's because this still has all sorts of cracked joints around it that between every distillation, we actually have to become bakers. And we roll dough, rye flour dough, and we make the dough so we can wrap it around the edge of the still, and it seals all of the joints. And then when we bring this to a giant boil stuffed with lavender, the steam won't escape out through the joints, but will go through the pipe and down to the condenser on the far side. And when it comes out of the condenser, drip by drip, we get the hydrosol and the oil separating off using a glass separator.
And how much oil do you get out of this, and how long does it take?
Well, you can imagine, that's a pretty big still. It's taller than me. Most people would think I'd get liters and liters of oil. But out of this, we get about 150 to 200 pounds of lavender, fresh lavender goes in. From that, we get about 500 to 600 milliliters of oil coming out on the backside.
And how much is that worth? It must be a fairly valuable commodity.
It is. It's one of the most expensive essential oils in the market today, and so about 500 mils is worth about $2,000 to us.
Okay. And you use it all here on the farm?
We do. We can't meet anything but our local demand. We're often asked to wholesale. We're often asked, how come we're not online yet? And the reality is we're getting thousands of visitors every weekend, and they're scooping up our products at an incredible rate, such that we keep selling out every weekend. And so we are making more during the weeks. And so when we're not open to the public, we're in the back of the farm actually hand making all the different products that we make.
So, Ian, why do you have a door in the middle of your field?
To get to the other side, isn't it? No, we put this door in the field. It was kind of a special thing that we were talking about art pieces, outdoor art installations. lavender in a farm is really about, kind of thinking. It's a mental space. We created this sort of quiet oasis of lavender and thought, what else could we do here on the farm? And one of them was, let's create some art pieces, some outdoor art installations. And one day I just thought, what about a door? Let's put a door in the middle of the field, with the notion that maybe that door is a portal to somewhere, or it's the beginning or the end or something of that nature. So there's a lot of symbolism in it. And when thinking about this door, I said to my children, I'd like to put a quote on the top of the door. And I started looking for different quotes and different inspirations. And my daughter said, well, what about, Dad, when you walk through the door, your worries are behind you and your joys are ahead. And so my 10-year-old daughter just nailed it, in my opinion, and so we stuck that on the top of the door. Well, as a result, people line up for this door now. They line up to stand at the door. They think, they meditate for a moment before walking through the door. And when they walk through that door, they close it behind them, and many feel like they've refreshed their day, their life, or their particular perspective on the world. It's been really neat. And it was particularly funny one morning when a woman stood at the door and she thought for a moment, and then she carefully went through the door. But when she was on the other side, she slammed the door. And everybody lined up and was laughing. And she said, well, I had a lot to get rid of, a lot of worries.